I don't remember the exact second it happened. Maybe the way her eyes caught mine across the quiet room. Or maybe the way her hand lingered a little too long when she passed me the glass of water. But I knew. In that stillness, I knew she wasn't just another presence in my life. She was the presence. She stood by the window, evening light softening every edge of her. Mid-40s, graceful in a way that didn't need to announce itself. There was a kind of restraint in her posture, like she was always holding back more than she gave. And that made me want to lean in, to see what she wasn't saying. I sat opposite, trying not to look too much. But the truth is, I've never been good at hiding. She noticed everything, the way I fiddled with the rim of my glass, the way my gaze caught her profile longer than it should. "You're quiet tonight," she said finally. Her voice, steady, low, carrying a calm I couldn't match. "I'm just listening," I managed, though there wasn't much to listen to besides the hum of the city beyond the window and the faint tick of the clock above us. She tilted her head, studying me as though my answer wasn't enough. Maybe it wasn't. I caught myself staring at the curve of her wrist as she rested her hand on the table. A small detail, but it held me. Without thinking, I reached to adjust the napkin near her, and my fingers brushed the back of her hand. It wasn't intentional, at least not enough to be called deliberate. But she didn't move. Her skin was warm, softer than I imagined, and the silence that followed was louder than any words. Her eyes lifted, meeting mine. Not with a smile, not yet. Something steadier. Searching. "I shouldn't," she began, then stopped. Her hand pulled away slowly, though not in rejection, more like hesitation. Like someone stepping to the edge but not ready to leap. "You don't have to," I said. My voice came out lower than I expected. For a moment, the air between us thickened. My chest tightened with the weight of things unspoken. Her lips parted, then closed again, as though every word she wanted to say was being measured and cut down before it could reach me. I leaned forward slightly, not touching her this time, but letting the closeness speak for me. "You don't even know what I was going to say," she murmured. "Maybe not," I said, "but I know how you looked when you said it." Her breath caught, barely, but I saw it. It was a dangerous thing, watching her fight between control and surrender. The woman who usually moved through life so sure, suddenly uncertain, caught in something neither of us asked for but both of us felt. Her hand brushed against mine again, lighter this time, intentional. The kind of touch that doesn't need permission because it already knows the answer. The world outside the window faded. All I could see was the dim light across her cheek, the way she leaned closer, not enough to close the distance, just enough to change everything. "Do you always look at me like that?" she asked softly. "Only when you're not looking back," I said. Her lips curved, the faintest sign of surrender. She leaned closer still, so close I could feel the warmth of her breath, the edge of something about to break. And then, the sound. A door clicking opened down the hall. She froze, inches from me. Her eyes, wide now, locked on mine. Neither of us moved. The sound of the door still echoed down the hallway, though no one stepped through. She exhaled slowly, as if releasing a breath she'd been holding for years. I wanted to reach for her, to bridge that tiny space between us, but she moved first, straightening her posture, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her blouse. A gesture of retreat. We sat in silence until she finally said, "You shouldn't be here this late." The words were firm, but the way her eyes lingered on mine betrayed her. "I don't mind," I said, softer than I intended. "Do you?" Her gaze shifted toward the window. "That's not the point." I watched the faint reflection of her in the glass, elegant, untouchable, but with something flickering beneath. She carried herself with a practiced steadiness, but I could feel the fracture lines, the places she didn't want me to see. "I've made mistakes," she said suddenly, as if confessing to someone else. "I don't always trust myself anymore." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, careful not to crowd her but close enough that she felt my attention. "What kind of mistakes?" Her lips tightened into a smile without joy. "The kind that leave you alone at 46, with a quiet house and too much wine in the fridge." It wasn't self-pity, not exactly. More like fact, delivered without asking for comfort. Still, it cut through me. "You're not alone," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes returned to mine, sharp, questioning, as though daring me to mean it. "You're young," she said at last. "You don't understand what people will think. What they'll say." I should have agreed, should have nodded and let it go. But instead I laughed, not mocking, just quietly. "When have you ever cared what people think?" Her brows lifted. And for the first time, I saw her falter, like I'd named something she tried to bury. She reached for the glass in front of her, fingers brushing mine again. This time, she didn't pull away quickly. Her hand lingered, not long enough to be bold, but long enough to feel like a choice. "You notice too much," she whispered. "I can't help it," I said. And I meant it, because I noticed everything about her, the way a strand of hair slipped loose near her temple, the faint mark on her wrist from where she must have worn a watch earlier, the way her voice softened on certain words like she was letting me in without realizing. She shifted closer, just slightly, enough that her shoulder grazed mine. I felt the warmth of her body through the thin layer of fabric, a heat that spread into me and rooted me in place. Her breath brushed my cheek when she spoke again. "You should go." But her voice cracked on the last word, soft enough that it sounded more like a plea than a command. I turned, meeting her eyes from inches away. Neither of us moved, though my hand rose slowly, stopping just short of touching her face. I didn't need to. The electricity was already there, humming between us. She didn't push me back. She didn't move at all. And in that stillness, the bond tightened, silent, dangerous, undeniable. The silence between us was fragile, like a string pulled too tight. I was about to say something, anything, when her phone lit up on the table. A sharp glow in the dim room. She flinched, grabbed it quickly, and turned the screen face down. "Work?" I asked carefully. Her eyes darted to mine, then away. "It doesn't matter." But her hand stayed over the phone as if shielding it. The spell had cracked, but not broken. I leaned back, trying to find words, but she leaned forward at the same time. Our faces drew closer by accident, the distance between us shrinking to a breath. I felt her exhale brush my lips. She froze, eyes wide, not scared, but caught. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't what?" My voice was barely there. Her hand hovered near mine, trembling slightly, as though she couldn't decide whether to close the space or pull away. Before either of us could move, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Quick, careless, drawing nearer. She bolted upright, smoothing her hair, her blouse, every motion sharp, controlled. I followed, my heart pounding, forcing my expression blank. The door opened, light spilling in from the hall. A neighbor's voice called casually, "Everything okay in here?" "Yes," she answered too quickly. "Fine. Just talking." The neighbor's eyes flicked between us. I tried to steady my breathing, to look unbothered. After a pause that felt like a lifetime, the door shut again. Silence returned. Heavy. Charged. She pressed her palms to the table, closing her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, something had shifted. Frustration, guilt, maybe both. "This can't happen," she said firmly. "Then why are you still here?" The words slipped out, sharper than I intended. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't answer. Instead, she stepped closer, too close, like her body was betraying her resolve. I stood as well, and suddenly we were inches apart again. I could see the fine lines near her eyes, the quick rise and fall of her chest, the hesitation carved into her lips. "You don't understand what this would mean for me," she whispered. "For us." I shook my head, swallowing hard. "All I understand is that I can't stop." I cut myself off, afraid of finishing. Her hand lifted, brushed my arm as if to steady herself. The touch was soft, fleeting, but it burned through me. Our eyes locked. The pause stretched, unbearable, until I leaned just slightly forward. She didn't move. Didn't stop me. Her lips parted, so close, then she turned her head at the last second, breath catching against my cheek instead. It wasn't rejection. It was something worse, surrender and restraint colliding in one motion. I can't, she said again, though her voice broke like she didn't believe it. I stood there, frozen, her warmth still clinging to me. And though she turned away, we were closer than we'd ever been. Closer, and falling, even as we tried to resist. She had pulled away, but only in words. Her body told a different story. Every time she said can't, her eyes lingered. Every time she whispered shouldn't, her hand hovered near mine like it forgot the rules she was trying to enforce. I couldn't stand the distance anymore. Say it, I murmured. Her brow furrowed. Say what? That you don't want me here. That you don't feel this. Her lips parted, but nothing came. Silence pressed between us, thick and trembling. She finally turned away, pacing toward the window, her arms crossed like a shield. I followed, slow, careful. The air smelled faintly of her perfume, warm and intoxicating. You think I don't notice? I said quietly. The way you lean closer. The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. Her back stiffened. She stayed facing the window. You're too young to understand what this would cost me. Then let me pay it with you. That broke her. She spun toward me, eyes blazing, not anger exactly, but something raw, unguarded. You don't get it. Her voice cracked. I've already ruined enough. I can't risk ruining you too. I stepped closer, closing the gap until she had to tilt her head to keep meeting my eyes. My hand rose instinctively, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. My fingers grazed her temple, lingered at her cheek. She didn't move. Her breathing quickened. I could feel it in the small space left between us, every inhale pulling me closer. I'm not asking you to promise me forever, I whispered. Just tonight. Just this moment. Her lips trembled. And what happens tomorrow? I leaned in, close enough that my words brushed her ear. Tomorrow, we'll pretend this never happened. But tonight, I can't pretend anymore. She exhaled shakily, her forehead dropping against my shoulder for a fleeting second, like she was surrendering to gravity. My hand slipped to her waist without thought, steadying her, pulling her infinitesimally closer. Her voice came out muffled against me. I've never felt like this. The confession sliced through the air. I froze, then whispered back. Then remember tonight forever. Her head lifted, her face inches from mine now. The tension was unbearable, her breath warm against my mouth, her eyes flicking down to my lips before darting away. I couldn't stop my hand from tracing the curve of her jaw, my thumb resting just beneath her lip. She leaned into it, trembling. The world shrank to a single heartbeat. She whispered, If we do this, there's no going back. Then don't look back, I said. Her eyes closed, her lips parting, and then the sound. A sharp knock at the door, urgent, rattling through the quiet like a warning. We both froze, caught at the edge of no return. The knock at the door lingered in the air long after the silence returned. Neither of us moved until finally, with a shaky breath, she stepped back. The warmth of her body left mine like a tide pulling away. She opened the door to the hallway. Empty. Whoever it was had vanished. She closed it slowly, leaning against the wood as though it were the only thing holding her upright. I stood frozen, my pulse still hammering from what almost happened. Then her phone buzzed again, lighting up the table. This time I caught the name before she could flip it face down. It wasn't work. It was his name. She saw me notice. Her eyes darkened, wide with something between shame and defiance. You're still. I started, but the words tangled in my throat. No, she cut in sharply. Then softer. Not really. Not anymore. Her hand trembled as she picked up the phone, silenced it, then set it back down as if it burned her. She wouldn't look at me. I stepped closer, too close, needing to understand. Then why does he keep calling? Her jaw tightened. For a long moment, all I could hear was her breathing, uneven. Finally she said, Because I never told him it was over. Not fully. Not in a way he could believe. The confession hung between us, heavier than the air. I swallowed hard. So he thinks that I'm still his, she whispered. Her voice broke on the last word. The room tilted. The closeness that had felt intoxicating now felt dangerous, like we were standing on the edge of something sharp. She turned, brushing past me on her way back to the table. Her arm grazed mine, just a whisper of touch, but enough to send a jolt through me. She steadied herself against the chair, gripping it too tightly. I didn't mean for you to find out like this, she said. I didn't mean for any of this. I moved toward her before I could think, closing the gap, my hand catching her wrist gently. She stiffened, then slowly met my gaze. You're not his anymore, I said. The words weren't a question, they came out like a demand. Her silence was unbearable. I lifted her hand, holding it between us. Her fingers trembled in mine, but she didn't pull away. My thumb brushed across her skin, and I felt the battle raging inside her. Finally, her lips parted. No. I'm not. The admission cracked something open between us. Her body swayed, ever so slightly, toward mine. The fear was still there. I could see it in the way her shoulders tensed, the way her breath hitched, but it was tangled with something deeper. Want. Need. I stepped closer, close enough that our chests almost touched. She didn't move back. Her free hand lifted, hovered near my face, then fell again as though afraid of what it would mean to touch me. We can't keep pretending, I said quietly. Her eyes locked on mine, shining with conflict, with longing. No, she whispered. We can't. And in that single, fragile sentence, we were pushed closer to the edge than ever before. Her last words still hung in the air, we can't. But she hadn't stepped back. Neither had I. The silence swelled, pressing against us, until it was unbearable. My hand still held hers, trembling faintly in my grip. Slowly, carefully, I lifted it to my chest, pressing her palm against the quick, restless beat of my heart. Do you feel that? I whispered. Her eyes dropped to our hands, then rose again, glassy with conflict. You make this sound simple. It is, I said, though my voice cracked. Either we walk away now, or we stop pretending. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she leaned forward just slightly, as if gravity was pulling her closer. My other hand rose instinctively, brushing the hair back from her face, fingers grazing her cheek. She closed her eyes at the touch, a sharp exhale breaking free from her chest. The air thickened, heavy with everything unsaid. I could feel the warmth of her body, inches from mine, the brush of her breath against my jaw. She opened her eyes again, and for the first time, there was no shield. Just raw, unguarded need. I've been fighting this since the first night you looked at me like that, she admitted, her voice trembling. Then stop fighting, I breathed. Her free hand lifted, hesitant at first, then firmer, sliding up my arm, resting against the back of my neck. The contact set fire through me, anchoring me in place. I'm terrified, she whispered. So am I said. The confession broke something between us. And then, finally, she closed the last inch. Her lips brushed mine, not yet a kiss, just the faintest contact, testing, trembling. My hands tightened at her waist, steadying her, holding her as if she might vanish. Then she pressed fully into me, and the world dissolved. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, her breath uneven, my grip too tight, the soft clink of her phone slipping off the table unnoticed. But it was real. Every wall she had built cracked under the weight of it. Every hesitation I had carried burned away in the heat of her mouth on mine. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathless, she kept her forehead against mine, eyes closed, chest rising and falling too quickly. This changes everything, she murmured. Good, I said. Let it. She laughed softly, almost in disbelief, before her voice steadied. Now you know me. The truth. The mess. All of it. I cupped her face, forcing her eyes to mine. I've always wanted all of it. For the first time, she didn't argue. She didn't retreat. In that moment, we weren't hiding. We weren't pretending. We understood each other completely, messy, flawed, terrified, and still unable to let go. We stayed close, her forehead resting against mine, both of us trying to catch our breath. The world outside felt distant, muffled, as if the walls themselves were holding our secret. Finally, she pulled back just enough to look at me. Her eyes searched mine, not with the same fear as before, but with something softer. "You'll regret this," she whispered, though it sounded more like a test than a warning. I shook my head, brushing my thumb across her cheek. "I'll regret walking away more." That silenced her. For the first time all night, her shoulders eased, her body melting into mine. She let out a laugh, small, nervous, but real. "You don't make anything easy, do you?" "Neither do you," I answered, and the corner of her mouth curved into the kind of smile she didn't give freely. The tension that had wrapped so tightly around us finally loosened. She leaned into me, her head finding my shoulder as naturally as if it belonged there. I held her, arms circling around her, grounding us both. We didn't speak for a while. There was no need. The quiet was no longer heavy. It was tender, filled with the steady rhythm of her breathing against my chest, the soft weight of her hand resting over mine. When she finally did speak, her voice was low, vulnerable. "It's not just the age, you know. It's the way people will talk. The way they'll look at us." I tilted my head down, pressing a gentle kiss to her hair. "Let them look. I'm not here for them." She closed her eyes, her grip tightening around my hand, fingers weaving through mine until we were locked together. "You make it sound so simple," she said again, but this time without resistance. "Maybe it doesn't have to be complicated," I whispered back. "Maybe it just has to be real." The words seemed to settle something inside her. She lifted her head slowly, meeting my gaze, and instead of pulling back, she leaned forward, kissing me again, slower, steadier, less frantic than before. A kiss that wasn't just desire, but choice. When we parted, I rested my forehead against hers, both of us smiling faintly, the weight of the night finally shifting into something lighter. She brushed her fingers over my jaw, her touch softer now. "You're not going to let me forget tonight, are you?" "Not a chance," I said. Her laugh was quieter this time, but it lingered in the air like a promise. We sank down onto the couch, still close, still tangled, her hand in mine, her head leaning against my shoulder. For the first time, it didn't feel like we were hiding from something. It felt like we were stepping into it together, messy, risky, but ours. And that was enough. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?